Another story was sent to me. So I decided to upload it for my subscribers and listeners. Flight attendant ruined her 18-year marriage. You won't believe what this flight attendant did to her 18-year marriage. This is the story of a woman who thought she had everything, a successful career as a flight attendant and an 18-year marriage that was going strong. But then something happened that destroyed it. All my wife and I had a strong marriage, or so I thought. She became a flight attendant at a very young age, 29, and she was very ambitious. Her family was wealthy because her father was a big real estate tycoon, but she wanted to make her own money. She traveled to many places, different countries, Europe and Canada to name a few places. At the beginning of our marriage, she was very attentive even when flying to all of these different places. She always ensured she would reach out to me. Communication was strong. When she was with some of her other flight attendants, she always took selfies of different places and it looked like she was having lots of fun. I was happy for her when she would come home. We would enjoy each other's company until she had to travel again. I made sure she was taken care of mentally and financially. Flight attendants don't start out making a lot of money. She started making $35,000 per year and she has been a flight attendant for almost 16 years. She is up to $69,000 per year. We lived in a nice home and 2 nice cars. I own 2 real estate brokerage firms. So I made enough to support both of us even if she didn't work. But I had one physical quality that she didn't like. My wife is 5'11" and I am 58. So yeah, I am shorter than my wife. We have been married for 18 years and I really thought we overcame that, but that was about to change. Well, on her last trip when she landed, surprisingly, I didn't hear from my wife until the next day, which was strange, but I let it go. She probably needed a day to herself when she did call. I didn't question her about it. I was just happy to hear her voice. She apologized for not calling and promised she wouldn't do it again. I simply told her not to worry about it. She told me she would be home in a few days. We chatted a bit longer, then hung up. Fast forward a few days. She came home. I picked her up from the airport and it was a little strange because she didn't talk much. She is a blabbermouth when she comes home. But this time that wasn't the case. She was quiet. I asked her if everything was okay and she said yes and that she was tired. I didn't press her any further. I figured she would open up when she was ready. We got home, I fixed dinner and we watched a movie together again. Not much. Talking after the movie, she went upstairs and said she was going to bed. I told her I would be up shortly. Well, her actions were unsettling. When I walked into the bedroom, I thought she was asleep, but she was on her phone and quickly put her phone away. The only thing I said to her was I thought she was asleep and she said one of her coworkers sent her some pictures of them. She finally went to bed and I stayed up a little longer just thinking about how strange her behavior had been since she came home the next morning. I got up early and went to the gym. I came home and she was still asleep. I made breakfast and left a note telling her I would see her later while I was at the office. Another flight attendant who works with my wife. She is a good friend of mine, sent me a text asking can we meet? I was perplexed but I said sure. We met at a 24-hour diner. When we met, she had tears in her eyes. I was thinking, why is she crying? She told me that my wife was cheating on me with one of the new flight attendants. She showed me pictures and I was in disbelief. I asked her if she was sure about what she was saying. She said yes and she even heard them planning their next rendezvous. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to think there was another explanation for what she was seeing and hearing. But I knew in my gut that she was telling me the truth. I asked her why she was telling me this. She said that we have been friends for a long time and she didn't want to see me get hurt. Then she said, "You know, she is only married to you for your money." I was stunned. I never thought my wife would do something like this to me. I asked her if she was sure about what she was saying. And again, she said, yes. I thanked her for telling me and went back to the office. My head was spinning. I couldn't focus on work. I had to make a decision and I had to make it fast. I decided not to confront my wife. When I got home, I wanted to do some research first. I didn't want her to know anything or how I found out she was cheating. When I got home, my wife wasn't home. I wasn't surprised and she didn't tell me she was leaving. I quickly learned in Rhode Island I can sue her and she wouldn't be eligible for alimony. But I didn't want to just have my friend's pictures as proof. After all, it only showed them holding hands and hugging. But my friend said my wife was cheating. My next step was to call an attorney and ask him a few questions about divorce laws in Rhode Island and see what he tells me. Then I plan to hire a private investigator and pay for him to follow her. And that's exactly what I am going to do as the days go by. I haven't let my wife know anything. I kept playing it off that our relationship was still going strong, taking her out to dinner, spoiling her with small gifts, flowers, anything to distract her. Fast forward. Today, my wife tells me that in a couple of days she has to travel again and she told me where she was going. She gave me all the information the day she told me that. I reached out to my friend who told me my wife was cheating and asked if they are traveling again. To my surprise, she said they were not. I asked her again, "Are you sure?" She said yes. She even sent me a screenshot of her schedule. I was absolutely shocked. My wife lied to me at that moment. I called a private investigator right away and set up a meeting with him. Later that day, I met with the PI, gave him all the information, pictures of her and a picture of her friend who was relaying information to me. I told him that a good friend of mine is telling me that my wife is cheating on me with a fellow flight attendant. And then my wife lied to me and said she was traveling for work again. But her friend told me she was not traveling. I gave the private investigator everything, the screenshot my friend sent me and pictures of my wife. I hired him right then and there and told him to start right away the day my wife was supposed to leave. I kissed her goodbye and told her I would see her soon. She didn't say anything other than "I love you." She even had her uniform on when she left as she walked out the door. I knew she would be in for a surprise for what I had in store for her. 3 days went by and I haven't heard from the private investigator and I haven't heard from my wife as well. At that point, I knew she was cheating. The next day I called the divorce attorney and asked him if my wife was entitled to any alimony in the state of Rhode Island if she cheated. He told me that she was not. I asked him what I needed to do to make sure I don't get taken advantage of. He told me I need proof and a lot of it. The private investigator called me 2 days later and told me he had tons of evidence. My wife was not only cheating but she was sleeping with multiple people. I couldn't believe it. The private investigator told me that my wife was staying in the hotel for days at a time and the hotel she frequently stayed at was an hour away. The private investigator showed me everything he had and I was disgusted. I couldn't even look at my wife the same ever again. I asked him if he could send me everything he had and he did after I got the footage from the private investigator of my wife cheating and turned it over to my attorney. He told me from the looks of it, I had an open and shut case and that he didn't think she would get any alimony. My wife was scheduled to come back home in 2 days and I had to act like everything was normal. So when she did come back, I asked her how her trip was. She said it was good and that she missed me. I told her I missed her too and we hugged each other as we hugged. I couldn't help but to think about how she could lie so easily and how many other guys she was sleeping with. When my wife tried to initiate intimacy, I told her I wasn't in the mood. I wasn't feeling well. I told her I might have food poisoning, which was a total lie. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't be intimate with her anymore. The thought of her being with other guys made me sick. The next day she tells me she is going to the salon to get her nails done and get her hair done as well. When she told me that all I could think about was her cheating on me again. And at that point I didn't care anymore. Today was the day I was going to tell the lawyer to file for divorce on my behalf. Before I called the lawyer, I called a private investigator and asked him, could he find out who the guy was that was working with her, the fellow flight attendant. He told me he could and that he would get back to me as soon as possible. About an hour later he called me back and told me he found out who the guy was and gave me his name, address, phone number, everything. I then relayed all of that information to my lawyer and told him to use it in the divorce proceedings as the days and weeks go by. I am making preparations to move my money and other assets around one day. My friend calls me and tells me that she saw my wife with the other flight attendant at the mall. I told her I am in the process of divorcing her and told her at this point, I don't care. I told her right now I have to protect myself financially in the divorce hearing. After talking to her, I left the office early to pack a few things and leave. I know she is out with her AP, so I just took a few things and stayed in one of the rental properties I own later that night. My soon-to-be ex-wife is blowing up my phone asking where I am. I didn't answer. She must have sent hundreds of text messages, but still, I didn't answer either one. A few days go by. I haven't gone back home. My ex-wife shows up at my office and is wondering why I left. I simply told her you will hear from my lawyer. She looks at me funny and I politely told her to leave the premises as she walks away. She looks back at me with this confused look on her face. A few more days go by and my attorney calls me and lets me know that my wife was served with divorce papers and that the divorce hearing is set for next month. Fast forward a week. I haven't heard from my soon-to-be ex-wife at all. I didn't even go by the house. I figured she would have just taken all of her stuff and left by now. I was wrong. When I went by the house to get my mail, I noticed that all of her stuff was still there. So I figured she must be out with her appy. Go inside the house and I see a note on the kitchen counter. It reads, I know you are going through a lot right now and I know you are mad at me, but I just want to let you know I am sorry for what I did. I love you. And I hope one day you can forgive me. I balled it up and threw it in the trash can. I couldn't believe she had the nerve to write me a note like that at the hearing. My wife's lawyer tried to get me to pay almost $8,000 a month in alimony. And when he presented that to the judge, my lawyer presented the evidence of my wife cheating and you could hear her gasp, and the judge flat out told her I am not awarding you alimony. Then the judge asked her attorney, did you not inform your client that here in Rhode Island cheating affects alimony? And her attorney says that shouldn't be a factor, and the judge says it does here in Rhode Island, and you know that, and you can appeal the decision if you like. All in all, I didn't have to pay any alimony, and the judge told us to sell the house and split the equity. My mistake was adding her to the title. Huge mistake. She ended up walking away with $75,000 of my equity. Well, the good thing about my divorce is I don't have to pay any alimony, which saved me a lot of money. My private investigator found out more information about the other flight attendant. My ex-wife was having an affair with. He was a tall guy, 64, and he had a wife and 2 kids, and she was a stay-at-home mom. She divorced him and she ended up getting child support and alimony from him. My personal note to Tony: I want to thank you for taking the time to upload my story and to let people know, always pay attention to red flags. My ex-wife's red flag was, I didn't pay attention to her remarks about my height.